lot of kids, a lot of teenagers would have been on site. And first drone at around 4:30, and then half an hour later, just as rescuers were already on site, the second drone struck again. So that's what you've mentioned. That's the double tap. Something that Russia has been using quite often as a strategy to try and inflict maximum damage on rescuers and on victims. It is a practice that is prohibited by international law. It was used on Kryvyi. The situation was so dire, is so dire in Kryvyi that rescuers from neighboring regions have been drafted in. They are coming from Kharkiv, from Kirovohrad, from Donetsk region as well, from Zaporizhia regions, all regions that are also in dire need of their own rescuers because strikes impact, several regions and that every day.
And clearly a civilian target there. I mean, with the at least 16 killed as we speak, and that number is feared to rise almost immediately. We are still getting reports that the rescue operations are still underway. Thanks for just summarizing that all up. Emmanuel, this has been a deadly day across Ukraine because those aren't the only deaths. Four more in Mykolaiv as well, two more in the Kharkiv region. It just seems to be mounting and mounting, and this comes at a particularly volatile time for the Ukrainian government to even respond.
Absolutely, and those strikes, they happen on a daily basis. They happen in several regions, sometimes simultaneously. It's even hard to keep up with counting the victims, such as the situation. You've mentioned that in Mykolaiv. This is on the town of Tokarivka. Four people died, including three children. Two of them were aged were 11 years old. One was 13, and a 30-year-old man also died in this strike. So a strike on a post office, a strike on a store, a strike on a house with civilian victims. There are, here in Kiev, in the capital, we've been left reeling after yesterday's strike with over 60 missiles, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and Volodymyr Zelensky has said, that Ukraine will struggle at the time to, at this time, to stop ballistic missiles. It has a pretty good track record to stop cruise missiles, according to the president. That is an interception rate of up to 90%. But when it comes to ballistic missiles, Ukraine really faces shortages. It needs the Patriot missile that it is requesting from its allies. But strikes such as the ones we've seen in Kryvyi, in Mykolaiv, those are drones being used, but they are jet-powered drones, which are also very difficult to intercept for the Ukrainian air defense.
No doubt that this is going to be a topic of discussion amongst the Ukrainian defense personnel in days to come. So much thanks, as always, Emmanuel Schas, for updating us on the situation. Let's move on now to Sweden, because a sword attack at a school in the center of the country has left one person dead and two others seriously injured. An 18-year-old suspect was arrested after the attack at the Pinel school in Bagasta, where around 4,500 students were in class. Police had fired shots during the arrest and said that there is no indication of a second attacker. Nearby schools were locked down as armed officers secured the area. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson has called it a serious incident, while Sweden's king has expressed dismay and sadness that the country has once again been hit by a school attack. We've also got a statement from Swedish police.
The police proceeded into the school to secure the premises and stop any further lethal violence. There they find one deceased person. As they continue further into the school, they find no further casualties or perpetrators.
Now, a powerful earthquake has rocked southern Peru, sending residents rushing into the streets with buildings shaken and rocks tumbling down the hillside. The 6.7 magnitude tremor struck in the Ayacucho region, that's around 38 kilometers northwest of Upahuacho, near Corocoro. 3 people suffered minor injuries, while at least 22 homes, 6 schools, and 12 medical centers were affected. The quake also comes just days after a devastating 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck Colombia, killing more than 300 and leaving hundreds missing. Peru's quake was felt as far away as Lima, Cusco, and Arequipa. Earlier, we were joined by Professor Ansoke, a leading geophysicist at University Grenoble-Alpes and the ISTER laboratory. I asked her if the earthquake we've seen in Peru today, as well as Colombia, and a recent one in Venezuela, were all connected somehow.
area earthquakes are not unusual, and it's actually expected that we have earthquakes in this area. These large earthquakes, occurred along tectonic plate boundaries where plates slowly move relative to each other. So in Peru and Colombia, you have the Nazca plate that is being pushed beneath the South American plate in a process that is called subduction, and the plates move relative to each other at about 7 centimeters per year. In Venezuela, it's a bit different. The Caribbean plate is moving eastward relative to South America at about 2 centimeters per year. And so in between earthquakes, the tectonic plates are moving slowly, but the fault at their boundary is locked, accumulating stress. And the stress builds up until the fault eventually ruptures. So it's like stretching a rubber band until it breaks. So of course, what is remarkable here is that there is a synchronization of the seismic activity in this area, but earthquakes do cluster in time and space. So this is really something that is very well known. So it's a very complex region. We have different faults, we have different tectonic plates. So the faults interact with one another. So you can imagine several connected rubber bands. If you pull on the first one, the other ones will also become stretched. So if you can imagine, for example, a spider web, if one strand breaks, the stress will be redistributed to the other strands. So it's a bit difficult to know whether they are actually connected or not, but indeed they are clustering.
Finally, a piece of information from the United Kingdom in a legal battle fit for a prince, but one that's unlikely to make Prince Harry smile. Him and 6 other high-profile claimants, including Elton John, have been ordered to pay an initial £9.54 million towards the Daily Mail and their publishers' legal costs. That's after losing their privacy case. A judge sharply criticized the way that the lawsuit was conducted, calling the claimants' behavior unreasonable to a high degree. The final bill could stretch even as far as £34.5 million. The ruling also comes just days after Harry and Meghan announced plans to return to Britain with their children, making the timing of this latest news, well, not exactly a welcome back message. There's news that Meghan herself could be starring in a new Guy Ritchie Netflix series, so maybe a bit of positivity for the family on their return. That's where we wrap up the news for now here on France 24. There's more coming up in just a few minutes.
Every day in France, 2 or 3 people die at work as a result of an accident.
Jules was cleaning the machine. At 2 p.m., someone gave the go-ahead to restart the machine, and Jules was inside it. He died instantly.
Speaking out to break the silence.
Yes, work kills, unfortunately.
Mostly men, mostly manual workers, and increasingly young people in precarious jobs.
When you're young or in a precarious job, you might accept things that others wouldn't.
All too often, safety takes a backseat to profit margins.
A paper inspection, I'm here to carry out an inspection of the site. But safety isn't a priority. That's why France has such poor records when it comes to serious or fatal workplace accidents.
We're in Saint-Fleur-de-Luz. This is the place where my son died on July 15th, 2025. He was completely buried under 30 tons of asphalt, tarmac, the stuff they use to resurface roads. He was trapped underneath it for about 15 to 20 minutes at 180 degrees. They couldn't save him. This is a memorial that Matisse's colleagues erected for him following his accident, so that no one forgets about him. no one forgets what happened and should never have happened.
Matisse Dugast was 19 years old. He was working as a day laborer for a road resurfacing company. 100% of his body was burned, and he died shortly after arriving at the hospital. The official investigation into the circumstances surrounding his death is taking a long time.
We still have no answers, and we'd really like things to move a little faster. We'd really like to have some answers.
Now Matisse's mother wants to raise awareness about the issue.
We don't talk about workplace accidents enough. That's why I'm doing this, to make a lasting impression, so we can actually discuss this and stop hearing empty rhetoric. I say yes, work kills. Yes, unfortunately, it kills.
Matisse's death is not an isolated case. In 2024, the French Health Service recorded 764 workplace deaths. This figure does not include the civil service, farmers, or people who are self-employed. Mathieu Lépine is a history and geography teacher. In addition to his job for the past 10 years, he's been compiling a record of fatal workplace accidents using articles from the local press.
By January the 8th, I'd already recorded 4 workplace deaths, including an incident in the Basque country, where 2 workers were injured after a concrete wall collapsed onto a boom lift.
Drawing on these extensive records, Mathieu Lépine has written a book to break the silence and humanize the victims behind the statistics.
The people who die at work in France today are overwhelmingly men. This can be explained by the sectors and trades where it mostly happens: construction, industry, transport. We tend to see those types of profiles. We also see a lot of agency workers as well as younger workers who are more at risk than others. It's clear that when you're young or in a precarious situation, you might accept things that others wouldn't, because, in fact, you're in a position of inferiority.
Too many fatal accidents for them to be mere anecdotes, yet they're often treated as just local news items.
Deaths in the workplace are seen as an unfortunate incident that happened for no reason. They're often dismissed as occupational hazards. People say it's just bad luck. It's become completely normalized, and sometimes even accepted by some workers themselves. But you should never expect to die at work, no matter what job you do.
Given these distressing figures, the French Labour Ministry is making the fight against fatal workplace accidents an absolute priority.
C'est mon premier jour à l'atelier aujourd'hui, c'est assez intense. Je t'appelle ce soir, ok?
Ce message aurait pu être banal si Fabien était rentré indemne.
Preventing deaths might be the message on social media, but what about in the companies themselves? Labour inspectors like Johan Journeau are tasked with monitoring compliance with safety standards. He works in the Paris region.
Hello, gentlemen. Labour inspection. Where's the site manager?
Johan agreed to let us follow him around a residential building site.
We're going to take a tour of the site. Will you come with me? Okay, thanks. Right, the steelwork is covered. That's good. Okay. I think we'll head to the basement, as that's where most of the activity is, okay? Okay. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? Well.
But he'll not be going down to the basement. The access isn't safe. He decides to halt work there immediately.
I'm putting a stop to work right here because of this access point. So you've got the number of the guy down there? Give him a call and tell him to come back up. Just imagine, you go down, you lose your balance, there are no handrails to hold on to. That entry isn't safe. You fall, if you're lucky, you hit the ground and it's a 2-meter drop. If you're less lucky, you fall further than that. It's a 15-meter drop onto the rubble. I wouldn't like your chances in that case. I'd rather issue a fine now and make sure the message gets through to the employer than having a fatality on a building site. Because as labour inspectors, we go out to sites with the police to view the bodies of people who died at work. Okay? That's exactly what I don't want on my watch. Okay?
This monitoring work is crucial. Yet in recent years, the number of labour inspectors has fallen. Across France, there are almost 300 vacant positions.
Safety is not a priority. That's also why France has such poor results when it comes to serious or fatal workplace accidents. I find it absolutely mind-boggling that as the world's 6th largest economy, we have such poor results. And it's also because there isn't a culture of safety. If Germany does better than us, it's because there is a genuine culture of safety in Germany, and that's what we're lacking.
The construction site where Véronique Millot's son was working hadn't been inspected in time. Alban died on his 25th birthday. He fell through a roof while he was installing solar panels. Now she campaigns to make sure her son's death can help others avoid the same fate. Véronique has joined the Stop Workplace Deaths Collective, which supports families struck by the same tragedy.
I don't believe in grieving your loss. I don't believe in that expression.
Well, the therapist explained to me that grieving a loss isn't about moving on, it's getting used to living with that pain.
The pain and the absence.
Exactly, it's learning to live with it. A part of me has died, but even so, it's still there and I have to live with it.
Sylvie and Fabrice Berthet lost their son in July 2023.
At 3:30 p.m. the doorbell rang and there were 2 police officers outside. One of them showed me his badge. And then they told me that Jules had had an accident at work. So I asked them the same question 50 times. I asked them where he was. I'll always remember the policewoman who was there. She'd stepped back and she was crying. And then he said to me, he's died. He's still at the scene. That's it.
Jules Berthet worked for the recycling company Paprec in Nîmes. That day, he was cleaning a machine when it was restarted by another employee. Jules was sucked in. He died instantly.
On the Sunday just before the accident, he said to me, you know, Mum, I'm going to resign because I'm not working in safe conditions. So he sensed it, he really did. And on Wednesday, he didn't come home.
It's illegal for employers to use a machine that doesn't comply with safety standards. According to the labour inspector who examined the scene, the machine that killed Jules had 79 instances of non-compliance, at least 2 of which played a decisive role in the accident. Paprec denies any responsibility.
These people must no longer be allowed to run companies. They've shown themselves to be incapable of doing so. Because they had the power to act at the site in Nîmes. The person who made my son sign the contract, knowing full well that nothing was up to spec. The person who operated the machine. The person supervising my son. Yes, I want this to serve as an example.
And at some point we need legislation. Because prevention's all well and good, but you know, it's like a child when they misbehave. If you don't punish them, they'll do it again. I think a company needs to be punished. And then the others will say, right, watch out, we need to be careful because there's a lot at stake.
The collective's calling for the sort of sentencing that sets an example and deters others.
In 2021, the average fine was 30,000 euros. It's an extremely small sum when it comes to being responsible for someone's death. So we're calling for a fine that is proportional to the company's turnover when it is the company that is convicted. When an individual is involved, then the prison sentence should not be suspended, but should be a custodial sentence, so that there is serious pressure on employers who are looking to flout the labor code.
Today, my anger tells me we can't bring Jules back. There are other young people who need saving. That's what this fight is for. I don't want Jules' death to be in vain.
A French court found Patrick guilty of homicide and handed down a €225,000 fine. The factory's director has been given a 3-year suspended sentence and a personal fine of €10,000. The company is appealing the decision.
In Egypt, debt is a crime punishable by imprisonment. A woman lent me the money. She didn't tell me there would be interest. And women are the first victims. It terrifies me. It wakes me up at night. They are vulnerable. Their creditors are merciless.
Lenders prefer dealing with women because they can control them. Men can disappear.
But women are fighting back to help these mothers and their children.
Here it is. We call it the House of Life.
This is inside the prison. It's a nursery we asked them to build. Our role is to soften that impact through art, culture, and music. Watch Reporters